automotive repair is, the basic area that we can get into, and a lot of you are pursuing, especially just to start, right? So you get into the general automotive classes, and you start taking those core classes that Claudia had mentioned: Auto 101, 103, 106, and 107, which will then lead to your first certificate once you've completed those 4 classes. Now, to get into Auto 107, you must complete 101, 103, and 106. Those are known as prerequisites, correct? So anytime you go into the course catalog or you go into the class schedule and it says there's a prereq, that means you have to take another course before you can take that particular course. So once you have taken those 4, though, you've earned your first certificate that you can apply for. And they don't just give it to you. You have to put in an application for it and say, I've done the work, may I please have my certificate? It takes some time for them to process it. And then you get a certificate, and you're entitled to some patches that you can put on your work shirt and proudly display. But, another area you can go into is alternative fuels, electric and hybrid. So my cohort, my coworker, I should say, or my colleague that I share an office with, Professor John Fralla, pretty much built the alternative fuels program from the ground up at Rio Hondo College, and he basically developed all those classes in the program, that, features alternative fuels, which would be like natural gas, hydrogen, electric, right? And then hybrid vehicles. And then he, of course, brought in Tesla and, negotiated to bring the Tesla program into Rio Hondo, and, make Rio Hondo became essentially a authorized training center for Tesla. And so we do that now. You also have your heavy equipment repair, right? If you're interested in getting into the heavy stuff. So there's a big market out there for technicians in that area. It's hard for employers to find people who work hard, suit up and show up, have the basic skills that they need to, progress through their career. You have to start somewhere, right? And all employers know that you're not just going to come in there with all the skills that you need to do the job, right? But if you have, a desire to work, a desire to learn, and you know some of the basics, how to, read a ruler or a micrometer, how to work with basic math. That's a big one right there, guys. Is work on your math skills, because just because you get into working with, wrenching on cars or equipment, people think that, oh, that means I don't have to know anything, I don't have to be smart. The people in these industries are extremely intelligent, and even though it's not an academic area, you're not going to be writing papers and, books and things like that. You still have to kind of have some smarts. So, today's automobiles and, equipment are highly technical, right? And lots of computers. So electrical is a big thing, so you need to really start thinking about understanding electricity, working on your electrical skills, how to use testing equipment and things like that. It's a kind of a, it's not a concrete kind of subject like nuts and bolts. You can feel nuts and bolts, and you can see nuts and bolts, and you can measure them. But electricity, it's invisible. It's like a phantom, right? You got electrons floating through wires, flying through wires, and, you can't see it, but it's been proven, that it exists. And, there are formulas that you can figure out, how many electrons are flowing, what is the pressure that's pushing those electrons through the wire, how much resistance do we have to that flow? So, I always compare it to like a garden hose, right? Water coming through a garden hose. Your water flowing through that hose is your current. You've got some pressure pushing that water. That's your voltage. And then you may have a restriction. Maybe somebody put a kink in the hose. That's resistance. So those 3 things come into play. So other skills that you should, kind of develop is electrical. If you really want to get into, especially if you want to get into Tesla, or that Jaguar Land Rover program that we're kind of highlighting. That's really all based on electric vehicles because Jaguar is going completely electric. You know, if you haven't heard, a lot of manufacturers are going completely electric, correct? Welding is another great field that you can either get into or you can do some, learn some welding to enhance your skills in other areas. So especially in heavy equipment, when I was working out of a field service truck, if you can weld and you can, repair things and test electrical stuff, you've got it all. So, you're all one package. If you're out on a job site and somebody says, hey, this thing broke off of my tractor, can you weld it back on? Hey, yeah, I've taken a couple of welding classes. I can do that for you, so that even makes you more valuable. So you can get into all kinds of areas, transit bus, advanced engine performance. Mrs. Romo was showing the different certificates, that you can earn and different degree paths that you can take. So if you're more interested in engines and engine performance, you can go that way. You can go into diesel. And then there are also areas that don't require, a lot of automotive knowledge, which would be like, well, the parts end of it, right? So parts specialists, that's another area you can go into. If you're more not interested in the hands-on and the wrenching and all that stuff, you can get into the parts area or, sales. There are all kinds of areas you can go into. And then you have your trucks. So service writer, you can get into a dealership, be a service writer, a dispatcher, a salesperson. There are just lots of careers that aren't hands-on if you're not, as interested in, getting dirty and all that kind of thing, but you still have to kind of have a knowledge of, the automobile in general and how to relay information to the technicians that, hey, customer just brought this car in and this is what's wrong with it. And this is what we kind of need to look at, right? So